Hello everyone, Baby Rizzo talking to the void again, and while I earlier in the month talked about The Grudge remake, reboot, next sequel, whatever it was, I mentioned that I was a big fan of the Ju-on movies, and I am, but more to that, Japanese horror films in general are some of the few films that still have a way of getting to me. They're just the right sort of creepiness that appeals to me, and they're usually some of the better horror films I end up seeing, at least in general. But while I haven't seen the entirety of the Ju-on series, another series that I've been a big fan of is the Ringu series, which I've seen several of, as well as all of the American remakes for, and I'm a sucker for a good crossover, so today, Sadako versus Kayako, the Freddy versus Jason of Japanese horror. Okay, I'm down for that. I was pretty excited to see this movie. I will say I was looking forward to it, but I wasn't expecting too much from it since I had heard of it, but I hadn't heard that much great reviews on it. So I was kind of hoping for the best, but not expecting the greatest out of it. And I sort of got what I was expecting in a way. But, plotline on this one. Now, this is set in pretty much it's kind of apart from any of the sequels of either series. It's pretty much you have to already know like the basic knowledge of some of them. It does go into it a little bit, but particularly for Sadako's side, it does explain the whole cursed video angle very well. But for Kayako, she gets a little bit of the short end, other than just roughly referencing her death house and while Toshio shows up, it never really says who Toshio is. So while Sadako's mythology is explained better, it doesn't really go much into Kayako's side of things, so it does rely heavily on you being familiar with it. That said, they did make one significant change to Sadako's mythology. Rather than her killing you after 7 days, she shortened her time frame way down to 2. Also, her cursed video in this one, I'm sorry, it's kind of boring. They wait so long to actually show it to you, to show you little bits of it, but while both The Ring and Ringu had this really creepy clip show that's almost a mystery of how to find her, this was just staring at a door. And the door opens, and she walks out. Okay. I was a bit disappointed in that bit of it in particular. So Sadako gets shortchanged on her video, Kayako gets shortchanged on her mythology. The movie was about an hour and a half, so it could have gone a little longer to try to go into a little bit more of those things, but alas. So the plot line in this one is two college girls, then after hearing about the cursed video from a rather obsessed professor, end up getting a VHS player for completely unrelated reasons, which just happens to have the cursed video inside it. After then watching it, one of them's going to be cursed, the other is not, because she was busy looking at her phone because that's how short the video was. She was sending a text message, and by the time she looked back up, video's done. But, so those two are dealing with that, and they're trying to find a way to get her uncursed before, well, the curse comes a-calling. Meanwhile, a high school girl moves into a house across the street from Kayako's death house. And she keeps feeling a draw to it. She keeps seeing things in the windows. She keeps dreaming of the house. Kayako's clearly reaching out, trying to get more victims. And we do see a pretty entertaining scene of several kids going into her death house. But I will say, while Kayako's scenes are the more tense out of a lot of them, this film overall, not really a scary film. It's almost entirely you just waiting to see the showdown between these two ghosts. And I will say some of Kayako's scenes do still have a little bit of tension to them, and Sadako's really do not. Kayako's have tension, Sadako's do not. Their names are a little similar when I'm trying to roll them off the tongue here. Anyway, The whole thing, and then as the two college girls are trying to find things. They go to their professor. He comes up with no answers. They go to a medium. She has no answers, and finally calls in kind of an expert. Now he's the standout of this movie. Keizo and his assistant and Tamo are. I want to see more of these two. They were great. Keizo comes in looking like a live action Spike Spiegel with spiritual powers and a give no fucks attitude, and I was kind of digging that. And his assistant is a like elementary school girl who's blind but with spiritual powers, and just the her attitude throughout it is kind of brilliant. Just just the way she just looks at one of the girls. Oh, you've got no future. Stone face, like, yep, you're gonna die. I does not sugarcoat it. This kid has no bedside manner. Okay, eventually, he gets the idea to then try to break one curse with another, as Sadako usually shows up to eliminate anything that tries to prevent her curse from taking effect. So they figure if they take that curse victim into the death house, she'd be forced to stop Kayako. And the two would destroy each other. They run into the high school girl as she's getting increasingly lured in. And so, since she's already cursed by Kayako, they decide to have her watch the curse video in there. So, two victims, both tied to both spirits. Hopefully, the slugfest should solve their problem. Okay, so. Then, I already discussed Sadako's differences a little bit. I will say, Toshio is also a bit different in this one as well. Toshio, if you don't know, is the little boy who has cat-like motif throughout all the Ju-on films. In this one, while he gets no explanation, no backstory, I will say he has a much more active role. Usually all Toshio is just kind of sit in the corner, staring at them. Meow. Okay, so he does his creepy thing, but is really usually more of a passive element. In this one, he's pouncing on people like cats, dragging them off, breaking people's necks. Toshio's kind of intense in this one, but they kind of made sure that he's no match for Sadako as more of a minor spirit that's tied to Kayako. So I will say I did kind of dig that they gave him a more of an active role, but at the same time, if you don't know who he is, he just seems random. So the confrontation. Now, most of this movie plays out like a poor Godzilla film. A lot of human interaction towards the beginning. You're just waiting the whole time to see the monster slug it out. And by the time it gets to it, it's rather short. But while a Godzilla movie can kind of pull that off, this one, I will say their confrontation was a bit lackluster. There are some cool elements of it, but it's too little too late. So, unfortunately, that didn't really hold up. I mean, some of it was interesting and neat, but not enough for me to give this one a glowing review, and okay, I'm gonna have to get into little spoiler territories on some of this ones, because I'm kind of mixed feelings on how it does end, and okay, so their plan to have the ghosts duke it out obviously does not work. So they have a last-ditch effort of trying to have both the ghosts go for one girl and then seal her away. They try that, but it has the result of having the ghosts fuse into, as they dub it, Sadakaya. Sadako, Kayako, haha. Which, I will say, the look of this, pretty much, more or less, it looks like Sadako, but has more of the movements of Kayako, as well as some of the bloodstains, and is making Kaiko's traditional death rattle noise. You know it. So, unfortunately, we don't really see almost Sadakaya do almost anything. It's a good look, but conceptually, I'm not sure on it. It's having this kind of smashing them together. I don't know if it was the best way to go. It's an interesting concept, but doing a Dragon Ball Z fusion on these ghosts may not have been what I was looking for. the movements that they have that she does have of kind of combining Kayako's crawl with Sadako's shoulder rolling movement walk was neat. But overall, yeah, this one's. I will give it a 3 MacGuffins. It was average. Some of the things that are there are cool, even if it lacks tension. Seeing these two on the screen was entertaining enough for me to at least enjoy my time with it. So 3 out of 5, but probably on the lower end of the 3. I did want more out of this one, and I didn't expect it would get there. It's no Freddy versus Jason, which was a lot of fun. This one, it's an interesting experiment, but it doesn't really pull it off. From what I heard, it started off as kind of an April Fool's joke that people kept commenting that they actually wanted to see, so the filmmakers did go for it, but no. You don't see nearly enough of the ghosts fighting for this one to really be worth your time. So only if you're curious, go into it. But if you're not a big fan of either of those, you're not going to get anything out of this movie. Alrighty.